I'll call this meeting to order for December 22nd. The first thing is the approval of the agenda, and item number 5 will be taken off.
Move to approve.
I got a motion by Grant, second by Jim, to approve the agenda with item 5 removed. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any citizens to be heard? Or on call?
And we did not receive any, no, Mr.
Very good. We have the bills and vouchers.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Jim, second by Kevin to approve the bills and vouchers. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And with that, we'll go into our main item. Kathy and Jenny giving us our weekly update. Good morning, you two.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Morning.
Better be all good news today.
It's all good news. Merry Christmas.
Okay.
Well, you can see our numbers are leveling off. Maybe if I take this, I can hear some feedback. The numbers are leveling off a little bit. We still have 6,003 positive cases in Clay County, 73 deaths. We have a few more deaths, which is, of course, unfortunate. And the 14-day case rate, which only goes through 12/5, is 136.3. And as I had some of my data people kind of project for the next period, 2-week period, and it's going down. So that'll
Kathy?
even be less than 100 projected.
Kathy, can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Just for the public, because you just, at the very start, you said we still have 6,003 positive cases. I don't want that to be confused with active cases.
Yeah, no, that's not active cases, correct. Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell. That is our total positive cases. Yes, just not to be confused with the active cases. That is correct. And then we have total positive cases for Minnesota, almost to the 400,000. And cumulative deaths are 4,872. So always sad that, you know, we have deaths from this virus. And then, yes, so Commissioner Campbell is right. We look at the next page, and I shortened the graph just because there's, we're often not looking back to March. So that's why you're just seeing the November, excuse me, November through December 16th. So we're looking at the number of cases. And there's a different number. As you can see, that's December 16th on this page. This one was updated as of December 18th. So it's a little bit of variance in those total cases. And then we have how many are coming out of isolation. So that's the number of people that have recovered from COVID and now are out of isolation. So our active cases at this point, and again, as you can see, it varies. It's at 370. So we know that the jump in positive cases are much less. It used to be around 600 each period that we've been reporting, and now we're down between the dates closer to 200 to 300. So the positive cases or the active cases are down. The positive cases, there's still an increase, but they're less. So as you see the graph, it's looking like it's tapering off a bit, or what we call leveling off. So that's the good thing. I mean, when we talk about our public health prevention measures, we talk about the masking, you know, trying to avoid those large gatherings. I think we're seeing the effects of that. Some of those measures that seem to be an ongoing thing that we talk about constantly are still allowing us to see a reduction in those positive cases. So that's the good news. And then the level of exposures is pretty much the same. We're still seeing it's in the community for exposure. And then you look at the graph with the ages, and you can see the cumulative ages, and the highest peak is at age of 20 to 24. And then there's some of the other ones that are also high, the 15 to 19, and the 25 to 29 age group, and then the 30 to 34. So those are our top age groups. And then you see, as Commissioner Campbell had asked about the ages of the active cases. And so you see there that it's still the 20 to 24 is the highest. And then we're seeing now the 40 to 44 are some of the active cases where we're seeing a little bit of a peak. And then the typical other ones are still 15 to 19 is down a little bit, but the 25 to 29 and the 35 to 39 are up there. So, you know, it's interesting how that graph is. It's still the main 20 to 24, but you see the 40 to 44 in this active case group. So a little bit of a change there. North Dakota is also reporting their numbers are down a little bit. They're still at a cumulative, North Dakota as a whole, a cumulative positivity rate of 23.72. So that's still up there a bit. None of us are out of the woods. It's nice to see that, you know, we were expecting a big surge right after Thanksgiving, and people followed the guidance, I think, very closely. So that's great for the community to continue to do the masking, the social distancing, all of the measures that we talk about. We do have two major holidays, of course, coming up. Christmas is the one that's concerning, because we do know that's a holiday where people want to gather, and we understand that. So we'll see what happens after the holidays. The measures are still the same, where we're really telling people to be careful about those gatherings. And then, of course, we have New Year's as well. So a couple of holidays that still may impact what we're seeing, but it's looking better, so we're optimistic about that we're slowing and spreading out that tidal wave of cases, basically. So they also talk about, and you maybe heard on the news a little bit, about potentially maybe a new strain of this COVID virus. We don't know if it's here. There's some prediction that it's here already, but nothing is confirmed about that. It's not the prevalent one. It's not the dominant one. But we know even with influenza, that's why they create the vaccine every year, because they're looking at the worst strains, which is the strains that are really going to cause death and severe illness, and that's what they're looking at. So, you know, that varies. So we'll see. This is coming at a time where we're also, and Jamie's going to talk about it in just a minute or two, about our vaccine and our vaccine distribution. So it's coming around that same time.
Kathy, if that were here, would that strain be picked up with those tests?
I'm not sure if we've heard how they're going to pick up. Jamie might know.
You know, I believe I was listening or reviewing the notes from the governor's or Commissioner of Health discussion yesterday. And my understanding is that was a lab question, but they understood that it would be picked up by the lab. Okay. The different strains are currently being studied by the Minnesota Department of Health lab.
Okay, thanks.
We also had a meeting last week with Sanford and Essentia and other providers. And Sanford and Essentia are feeling pretty good about their numbers. Their numbers are going down as far as the surge of cases that they're dealing with. So they're feeling they're at a spot where we're not seeing that across the country. There's hospitals that are really in dire straits. But at Sanford and Essentia, the numbers are manageable. They're talking about the numbers are not, they're not overwhelmed with the cases of COVID cases. So that's good. And their staffing is better. You know, they had a lot of recruitment of getting staff in to deal with those surges of cases. But at least at this point, as of last week, they're feeling good about the numbers. So that's good for our region, that the numbers are a bit better in those hospital situations. The testing continues. We have the Saliva Testing site. And we don't know exactly, you know, that was supposed to end in December, the end of December, they call them the semi-permanent sites across the state. But we've heard that's going to expand, but we don't know how long they'll be here. But, you know, they're still doing a fair amount of testing. And as of last week, December 13th, they did about 3,591. So it's still a great site to provide the testing that we need. And the turnaround time is good. We're hearing people getting results in a fairly expedient way, sometimes within 24 hours or a little bit more. So we're grateful if they continue, because that's a good resource for us on this side of the river. And we also serve North Dakota folks as well. So it's a really good resource to have that. So we're glad they're going to continue. We just don't know what the time frame will be.
Is that, oh, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Is that the only site that's open? I mean, there's nothing open in Fargo, West Fargo area? I mean, that's just open for people that can walk in?
The North Fargo has a site in West Fargo, and they are open Monday through Friday, and they do swabbing for anyone, and it can be for Minnesota folks as well. So that site is still open Monday through Friday. You can register online, and that's pretty slick as
So
well.
there's 2 sites available for people, okay.
Correct, yep.
Sorry, Kevin.
Along with the medical, Sanford and Essentia have their ability to test too.
And the home testing is available also through the Minnesota Department of Health. You can actually request a kit. It'll be sent to your home.
So the 3,500 number, that's in a week's time, right? That's.
Correct, yes, for the
That
testing.
seems like that's down about 1,000 compared to where it had been.
Yes, it has varied. It was, it ramped up. The highest amount of testing we did was the week of November 15th. We did 5,800 tests. And then the following week, it went down to 4,500.
Yeah.
So we went down 1,000. And then the week after that, it was 42. Now we're at 31 and then 3,591 for this week of December 13th. So whether that reflects, there's maybe less people getting tested. There's, we know that there may be students out of the area now and in various things, but it's still a good place to get tested. We've heard people say it's so much easier than the swab test.
And that can be a lot of retesting too, I suppose, too, right?
Right. And I know that the higher ed, when we talked with them, they're hoping to have the ability to test students as they come back. So we're working with this Vault company to make sure that they have the capability and capacity, and sounds like they do.
Can I, you talked about this, that they opened a place in Fargo for the special plasma treatment stuff. Have you heard-
Yeah, do you remember,
Have
Jamie?
we heard any more on that? Is that,
I guess I personally haven't heard a lot. I've heard of one person that went and had the treatment, and that was actually in Castleton, and it was very effective. The person did very well. It was a woman between the ages of 65 and 70, and she had chronic health conditions, and she did very well. But it's available. I don't know why we're not hearing very much
well,
about it.
yeah, and again, that's, that process would be prescribed by a physician to do that, right?
And the goal is to have that treatment prior to hospital level of care.
Right.
Where if you're in the hospital, they have the plasma donations that they
Right.
would like to be using.
I was just curious, because I haven't heard any more on how often that was used.
Yeah, we can see if, on our Wednesday call, if they have any more information, we can ask that question with the other healthcare providers.
Thank you for bringing it up, though, because I think it needs a little attention. I think
Yeah,
it's
well,
a
yeah.
Absolutely.
utilized resource.
Well, and I think if somebody goes into it, sometimes it might be a good thing on the part of the patient to ask their attending physician about it too,
Yes.
that might help a little bit in being able to have that treatment provided.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, I'll let Jamie talk a little bit about our vaccine distribution.
I talked about vaccine last week, but we are getting a lot of questions about vaccine and when it's coming and for what target population, so I'm just going to talk a little again about that. But basically, first of all, the goal is for everyone to have the COVID vaccine and for it to be readily available to all people. So when we think about that, we think about where we go for our flu shots. We go to our primary care provider, we go to the clinics will do like blitzes, so you can come in, you don't even have to have a provider at Sanford, Essentia, Family Health Care in order to have that flu shot, and you can go to your pharmacies and walk in. So that's the goal. That's where we're seeing that we will get eventually. But because we have a limited supply, we are having to prioritize. And when I say we, that's at the CDC level, and CDC is taking their advice from medical experts in terms of the high-risk population. So right now, the target population is healthcare providers and long-term care residents, and that's based on science. So they've studied basically those in long-term care. Not only are they in long-term care because of their age and often because of chronic health conditions, not always, but in most cases it's an age and chronic health condition, but also because of the congregate living setting. And so that puts them more at risk. We've had questions from people that are living in senior high-rise apartments, and although that is a top priority, we are focusing on those that are in a congregate living setting. And then our first priority in Minnesota is with the healthcare providers that are treating those that have COVID, so that's the first wave. There are a lot of questions, and I'm sure you're getting those questions. We get them every day from the public and from friends and family. Should we get the vaccine? And I think that's the one thing that I wanted to just really stress is the vaccine is safe. It has been tested. Many trials have been done. The questions that are coming up right now have to do with things that have not been tested. So they haven't tested children yet. They haven't tested pregnant women. They haven't tested people that are breastfeeding. But the experts are evaluating what is the probability that you would be safer, and then also looking at the risk for a pregnant woman. And so each of those individuals are encouraged to talk to their primary care provider and ask questions, but also look at the research. So the organizations that represent pregnant women and professional organizations for breastfeeding are the ones that are weighing in on what the risks are. So it's a risk-benefit. The benefit definitely outweighs the risk when it comes to COVID vaccine. And so that is, number one, is that we are saying, yes, the vaccine's been studied, the trials have been very thorough, and we encourage you to get that vaccine. Just a few of the things that are, when we have a short supply, they're looking at in the healthcare providers, anyone who's had the vaccine and is in close contact with people with COVID is encouraged to have the vaccine. However, if they have a low number, then they're looking at deferring for someone who's had COVID in the last 90 days. So it doesn't mean it's not important, it is, but if there's a shortage, that you pass that dose to the person that has not had COVID. So those are the things, looking at chronic health conditions in those healthcare providers. So when we talk about those two priorities, healthcare providers, that covers a lot of the people in our community that also have chronic health conditions. So we're kind of getting both of those two things covered when we're addressing healthcare providers. The questions that keep coming up are like, what's the next population? And that really is being studied on a regular basis. For us in Clay County, our charge with the vaccine that comes to us is going to be for those that are first responders, like they are the ones that arrive when someone calls an ambulance kind of thing. And then also for those that are doing vaccinations and those that are testing. So again, it's that close contact with a person that's potentially infectious. Very limited amounts of vaccine is coming to us, but it will continue to come on a weekly basis. So the planning that we are involved in right now with our state health department and our regional hospital and healthcare systems is looking at, first of all, getting our healthcare providers covered, second of all, getting our long-term care providers and residents covered through the federal pharmacy program, and then for us in public health to be focusing on those that are not associated with the healthcare system and our emergency, our EMS staff that are not associated with the healthcare system. So the vaccine will continue to come weekly. When we get our vaccine, at the same time that we're waiting for shipment, we're also working with the state health department on the protocols to follow for the vaccine, and there will be required training for staff that are going to administer vaccine as well. The next thing once we get those protocols is to get our doctor's orders, because that is, we do require a doctor's order for administration of that. In the meantime, we have a plan that we're working on with the state health department and how to address the populations and where to best serve them. Another priority for vaccine is that it's not sitting. So we have to look at if we have a population that's available for the vaccine, and we don't have the numbers, then we need to look at the next level. And that is all guided through Minnesota Department of Health.
So just to add on to that, and that was a good review, initially our plan will be, and we're going to get the vaccine potentially the end of this week, so we could start vaccinating next week if we have the protocols and the doctor's orders. Otherwise, it'll be the week after. We need to do the saliva testing, folks. That's our responsibility, public health. So there's 40-ish employees there, so we need to get those people vaccinated because they are doing at the testing site. We will also be doing our nurses in our own department that will be providing vaccination. So we need to get those people. So those are initially our 2, and then, we're gonna get maybe 100 doses this first round. So we may be able to start on some of the EMS folks at that time. So that'll be it's a small amount of doses. It's not going to go a long way, but we'll be getting, as Jamie described, every week we'll be getting vaccine. We don't know the quantity. They have not told us. They told us we should get about 100 this week, but we don't know the quantity after that. And we're getting the Moderna. We're not getting the Pfizer vaccine. So the storage and handling is much easier on the Moderna vaccine, which is frozen or refrigerated. If we put it in the refrigerator, it lasts 30 days. So we need to get the vaccine out as quickly as we can.
So just a couple more things that people have been asking about is, will it be required? No, it is not. It's optional for people. No one will be required, just like a flu shot. It's not required at this point. Will there be a cost? There will not be a cost to individuals. There is the vaccines being provided to us, so there will not be a cost for that. And then how many doses, basically, just to repeat that, 2 doses. For the Pfizer, it's 21 days later. There's a window there. It could be a little bit early, and it can be later, and you don't have to repeat the dose. The first dose if it's later, and then the second with Moderna that we'll have is 28 days. And so, again, that's the goal, but it can be a little bit later and a few days earlier.
And just for the public, and this has been on the news too, this is going to be a number of months of vaccinating. So we're getting the high-risk priority groups that the state has set up, and so they're in phases. So we're following those phases. Just for the general population, it's going to be a number of months down the road because we get calls, when can we get the vaccine? Just someone in the public. This is going on for quite a few months. Into spring is at the anticipated time. So we'll be continuing to vaccinate every week, hit all of the priority people, and then move into the next phases of others.
Yeah, thank you. That's kind of goes to a couple of my questions here. So the protocol that you have for who gets it in line, that you're talking about the doses of the vaccine that come through public health.
Correct.
Correct? Because I read this morning too that CVS Pharmacy is expecting to vaccinate 63,000 people in Minnesota. It didn't give a timeline for it, but I'm assuming that that CVS Pharmacy, Walgreens, and some of those will also be getting some sort of proportionate amount of vaccines. So how does that work then in terms of prioritizing? Is it just goes to their customers in general then, or?
Well, their requirement in Minnesota right now with their contract is doing the long-term care. So the pharmacy, the CVS and Walgreens, they're going in and doing all the long-term care individuals across the state of Minnesota.
Okay, but those doses are not counted in the numbers that we get that go to the public health. So
Right.
those are additional doses that are available that can, give some encouragement that there might be a little bit more going on than what you can talk about.
Right. Exactly right, Commissioner Campbell. And the healthcare facilities are taking care of their own healthcare individuals. So in other words, Sanford and Essentia will take care of, if they have clinics, they'll take care of their clinic staff. So public health will be responsible, as Jamie described, for all the other ones that aren't affiliated with a healthcare system, that are a lot of the rural EMS and, law enforcement, those folks will be managing those with our doses. So that's right. You're right. There's other doses coming in.
And that's the Federal Pharmacy Partnership Program, the PPP that we've talked about, which is huge, and that will definitely be coming into our community very soon.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other questions we can answer?
Must have given a good report if there's no.
No questions, or it's too early in the morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the update again.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work in that. Okay, with that, we'll move into the potential redistribution of the manager appointments within the Wild Rice Watershed District. Is Becker County having anybody here for representation, or?
They don't, Mr. Chair. Again, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As you may recall, over the last, it's about a year and a half now, Commissioner Gross, Commissioner Mojo, and myself have been providing ongoing updates with Becker County's concern about representation levels of managers on the Wild Rice Watershed Board. The Watershed Board was last redistributed back in 2006. And at that point, currently now we have, they're set up into 3 districts through the Wild Rice. Counties are partnered with each other, so we have Polk and Norman, who have 3 managers. We have Monoman and Clearwater, who have two managers, and Clay and Becker, who are partnered, and they have 2 managers. The county that has considered to have the largest total area, the largest market value of that area, and the total population is, I guess, assigned the ability to designate who those managers are, with the understanding that they will work with the alternate county in bringing forward a manager of their choice. Currently, we have Dwayne Erickson from Becker County as the representative for Becker. Prior to 2006, Clay County had 2 votes by itself, Becker County had 1, and Monoman and Clearwater had 1. And so the concern from Becker County's standpoint is they believe, based on their total area of the watershed, the market value, and the population, that they should have their own appointment rather than Clay County acting on their behalf. And so this past November, Becker County did put in a formal request with Bowser for the redistribution process to begin. Within your packet, you have that letter that was sent to Bowser. One of the things that was new in that request from our conversations that we'd had through this process is Becker County is now also asking for an additional manager for themselves. And so they would be looking to have 2. My understanding is that would be coming back from Monoman or Clearwater, but that would be determined based on the redistribution. I think Bowser has been concerned with going through this process because redistribution can only happen every 10 years. And so when you make that move, it's a somewhat permanent move. I think there's concern from Bowser's perspective of what the impact would potentially be, or if there would be an impact at all. And so Bowser has reached out to all of the counties involved in the watershed and have asked for each county to make an official position on whether or not we would approve or agree with the redistribution of managers. And with that, I'll yield for any questions.
I guess going through that email that Bowser sent to Mike, I go along with that one in bullet point number 2, what issue is going to be resolved with the petition to redistribute managers? And I guess, I don't know if we ever brought that, if that's ever been mentioned from Becker County, what are they trying to solve? Is there a problem, whatever, but Bowser's asking the same question I've been asking, what are we resolving by the distributing the managers. So that question hasn't been answered, you know, and also in the third bullet point, he's saying, so what are we trying to fix? So no one's come up with a problem. I don't think anybody's presented the problem yet, other than we want to appoint someone from Becker County. It's the only thing I've heard so far. I don't know if anybody else reviewed this quite a bit to see what, if you got any more questions, you know, but like I say, I don't know, you know, a lot of people, times we say, don't fix what's not broken, you know, so it's, that's where I'm sitting at right now. Why would we want to read this? I mean, if you got the authority to do it, why would you want to give up authority, you know, and that's, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, you and I have spent a lot of time having conversations with our administrator on this, and since I've been on the board, this is really a unique partnership. I see it as how the appointments have been made. We have never gone against Becker County's recommendation. If anything, Commissioner Gross has been the recruitment manager, so to speak, to recruit people to even file for this. I don't understand the point. You know, for anything other than, you know, when I'm reading this and it says efforts to work with Clay County to agree to a formal partnership have gone, have not gone anywhere, it doesn't make sense to me, because we have been open with Becker County that we will always make the appointment that suits them. My question on the timing doesn't make sense. Why would we do it now? I know that the last distribution was January 26, 2006. If anything, it would seem to make more sense for them to do it after a census result comes. It is not our responsibility to act on this. Becker County petitioned Bowser for the redistribution. So why does Clay County need to come up with a position? Beside the fact that we've always worked with them, we are active with the Wild Rice meetings. Commissioner Gross goes to the majority of them. We're always part of the discussions. We're recruiting managers. We've not gone against Becker County. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't think it's our position to make a formal action.
Well,
You got a comment?
Mr. Chair, I might disagree with Commissioner Moschel slightly on this. I think that, I think we should respond, and I think we should respond saying that there's no reason to fix what isn't broken. I guess that's my feelings on it. I've been a real critic of when they expanded the Buffalo Red River Watershed District and the way the new membership was done, putting Clay County in a minority, when we are by far the biggest population base and money raiser for the district. And we went from a 60% majority to a 40% minority vote. And I found that to be an outrageous deal. But I don't see in this particular case where they're asking for additional membership that would change the voting structure in terms of where it comes from. But, you know, I agree with Commissioner Groth with what you said about, and Commissioner Moser, you said it too, that since I've been on this board, we've never not appointed somebody that Becker County had interest in serving. So, I don't know, Becker County seemed to think that the change for the Buffalo Red was good, that I think really hurt Clay County. And I guess I think we should respond that you know, we don't see any reason to change something that's been working.
Another thing on that item number 4 in the last page, you know, they says, additionally, Becker County would request the authority to appoint 2 managers to the Wildlife Watershed Board, you know, and it just, I don't see that either, you know.
So what does that mean? Does that mean they would take one from somebody else because they're not asking for an additional member? So to me, it sounds like, you know, who do they want to take that from? Is that clear?
Yeah, well, like I say, the whole thing is, excuse me, the whole thing is, there's no purpose, no, I don't know, what do I say? There's no saying what they want. You know, I mean, I know what, they want the authority to appoint one, but why, I guess, there's no why in there. And that's what I don't understand.
Mr. Chair, I would just,
I think it's because they believe it should be their appointment, and I guess, like has been said, every time this issue comes up, the board, as far as I know, has always appointed who Becker County wants anyway, so I think that's probably, you know, what the issue is that we appoint who they want anyway, and they believe should be their appointment, and so they want it changed so it is their appointment, and I think we may feel the same way if we were in that situation, so. And I agree with what Commissioner Campbell said, you know, in terms of what's happened with the Buffalo Red, and maybe we can look for Becker County support in making some changes there in the future, so.
Well, I could certainly, you know, if that were to be the case, you know, if we've always gone along with Becker County too, but I would be real concerned about changing that where they go from 1 to 2. I would have some real concern over that piece of it. The other one, you know, and there's also the thing that to me needs to be, you need to be careful of in watershed districts too, where in the case of the Buffalo Red, for example, not only were we the biggest player in terms of population and funding and everything else, but we are also the recipient of all major water projects that come to drainage, that flow. We're the last place where all this water hits, and you know, in the case of the wild rice, that's not the case for Clay County. You know that ends up being more, I think it goes more to Norman County. So you got to be careful that they don't have the ability to be able to defend themselves, you know, when it comes to projects that can deal with flooding. You know, so I would be concerned about how they would alter those votes. But again, Commissioner Wayland, I don't have a problem with if Becker wants to do their one. I don't care.
Well, maybe we should get some the board should get some clarification on, you know, what they're actually looking at here in terms of, you know, if it's more than one appointment or just the one appointment, so.
And that was my point, that is the Board of Soil and Water Resources job. I mean, that's what they do. They look at all of these things statewide. I mean, you have to be able to still have a say when you have land within the wild rice watershed. Part of Clay County is. I mean, it is a big part of it. But my argument is that if they want to petition Bowser, it's Bowser's decision. And then, like you say, it's a delicate line between somebody having the authority to dump water on somebody that doesn't have the votes. 2, again, Bowser deals with that. But like Commissioner Campbell said, if you have the largest majority in a tax base in a different watershed, then maybe we should be looking at making sure that they have equal representation for what the vote structure should be.
and I would note, both Commissioner Gross and Commissioner Mojo have extended multiple opportunities for Becker County to discuss this issue, and we did not end up having any meetings on that. And so I think some of the questions that Commissioner Whalen asked hopefully would have been answered during some of those meetings, but we didn't have those, so.
Okay. Any further other comments? Any motion to change anything?
Well, I'm really concerned about the requests, the additional requests that they're asking for about going from right now, depending on Clay County to do a representation for them, to go from that to them getting that opportunity fully on their own, plus another one. That concerns me, that, especially that second part of that, where they're asking for a second one. Who are they suggesting that's being taken from? And I do think that we should address that concern to Bowser, that if there's a concern that we'd have, that's what it would be.
And I might mention that the timing of this, like I said earlier, doesn't make sense. This came out after the appointment that we made on Becker County's behalf, resigned at a meeting, came to us to talk about it, and then changed his mind, and so we reappointed him. Becker County did not reach out once during that time. They had representation at that meeting, they got minutes from that meeting. It never was something that they wanted to talk about. They've not been part of this, coming to a formal ask. They all of a sudden changed the amount of appointments that they want to make. I'm on many boards with Becker County. I see Becker County commissioners often. Now it's been virtual, but have they ever reached out to you at any of those meetings? You're all on boards with Becker County. This just doesn't make sense.
Well, but I think our administrator is looking for us to do, how do we want to respond to Bowser, and I think we should respond. I really do.
I don't know if it's Bowser we should respond to or Becker County they respond to.
Well, Bowser's the one that's asking, right?
That's correct, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Campbell. Bowser's made the request, this request of all of the 6 counties within the watershed.
Maybe the response should be that we understand their position on the one spot, but not, we wouldn't, Clay County wouldn't agree to another spot by Becker County.
Well, maybe the best way to respond would be, and Commissioner Mosher's got a point here, is that we're not taking a stance on the first request. Leave that to Bowser to determine. But when it comes to their second request, that we would oppose that. I think that's the way we should respond. And if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I would make that a motion to respond to Bowser in that fashion regarding their request for our opinion.
I would second that motion.
Okay. We got a motion by Kevin, second by Jenny, to respond to Bowser in the format he indicated. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes, so,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
okay. Okay, that will move up to Joe and Benny coming forward too. This is on, to move forward, the construction engineers to fit up the project for the new administrative building on the 13th Avenue, 12th Avenue South. Formerly known as the RDO building, but now known as the Lee County Government Services, or,
We'll hopefully figure out.
we'll discuss that yet today.
Yes. So, yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and Board. Like I say, we have Ben here, and we're gonna go over the project here, and then if you have questions specifically for him, that's why he's here, so. But, basically what we've done, a couple of different things we were hoping to work out today is, the project itself, what it is, and the cost and how we pay for it, and then also discuss, you know, the naming of the building and the signage, how you want that to look. So I guess we'd start out with the project itself. It's been kind of we just got bids in last Friday, I believe, and Ben and I have teamed up to put together costs. So he's went out and gotten the cost to actually fit up the building on the construction part, and then I've worked with department heads on what the needs are, technology-wise, signage, all that kind of stuff, to combine a total project cost here. So yesterday, we had met with the building committee, and just for Commissioner Gross and Commissioner Haney, we just a note there was some like 33,000 in technology stuff that Tim Dent had already internally services. So that money came off yesterday's totals, just so you know that little change happened afterwards. So, but anyways, basically right now we have a total project cost of $374,781, and that's basically to build a big lobby and then a smaller lobby, and just everything that's needed to fit up the building. Yeah, other than basically that's that. We had 4 different bid alternates that we cut out yesterday. The building committee felt that we could go without for now, and then that was how we were able to get to this total cost here. So big question was, how do we pay for it? So we had some discussion on that. I've brought forth a few different options for you to consider, and obviously option 1 is the project funding would be funded all out of reserves, which is option 1. I don't know if that's the most favorable one, but the option 2 and 3 though, we discussed yesterday, specifically option 2, that, you know, the Fund 19 and Fund 13 could help some of the cost of this. The one kind of, I guess, that would make me feel comfortable is a couple of things. I like to keep that Fund 19 at 100,000 for any kind of emergency type situations. And the other thing is we discussed maybe about mid-January coming to the board or to the building committee with you know, a possible capital improvement bonding option for you. And this would include both campus and you know, highway, kind of one big list we would bring to the building committee, and then hopefully come down and try to sort through that and see what would be on that bonding. Then we could do option 2 here. So talking with Lori, that she felt that would be a good way to go about it as well. So those are your, and then we did option 3 would be just to use Fund 13. There's 200,000 out of that one that we would just use, and then the rest would come out of reserve. So as far as Fund 13, that one has 200,000 in right now, and that one was designed for carpet paint and all that stuff, but due to like master planning, we ended up we put that on hold for 3 years, and we felt that list actually got taken care of mostly through the projects we've done in the last few years. So that 200,000, we're comfortable with spending all of that on this project. It's the Fund 19 we'd like to kind of watch a little bit, make sure it doesn't get under 100,000. So those are your 3 options, I guess, I've brought forth. I would like to see direction or see what you feel.
Yeah. Any questions, or?
Well, I'd like to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
So the Fund 13, that 200,000, how is that fund replenished? Is that the one where we put 100,000 a year in?
That's the 50,000. We put 50,000 in every year for Fund 13, and then we put 100,000 in for Fund 19.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Fund 13, were those funds originally from the last capital improvement?
No, I don't want to say that. We had built that fund just through the 50,000 every year. That was 10 years ago, I think I remember. I wasn't involved in that, but, so I'm not sure if that carried over into that, but, we've built that, we've used it. We've typically used that every year or every 2 years when we've done these projects, but,
Well, I think, you know, I think for right now, for your planning purposes, I certainly think that Fund 13 is appropriate, and maybe the reserves, maybe that option 3, but but I say that with this in mind. I'm hoping that when come January, and I'm glad to hear that you're bringing forward a plan for a lot of capital improvements that we can probably incorporate into a bond that, just to give you folks an example, we did a $2 million similar deal for Prairie Lakes, and the interest rate came in at 0.3%. I mean, that's like almost free money, and when you think about being able to do that and expedite some of these projects that might otherwise, through a normal budget, have to take longer to accomplish, but then you can reap the benefits of those things sooner, it would be foolish for us not to do that. So I'm good, and so I think right now, and that's why I propose option 3, and then as we go through that, maybe then we can go back and bond that and replenish that reserves that we would use, or even maybe replenish Fund 13 again, so.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear that you've got a list, and,
Yep, that'd be first step, mid-January.
yeah,
first
okay.
Meeting of the year for building. Ben, do you have anything to add on your end?
Not a lot, we're basically basing our numbers off the plans that Klein McCarthy drew up, with a few specific tweaks that Joe and I have gone through, so I guess should end up being a nice space when it's done.
At our meeting yesterday, we discussed, we bought the building now, but it's not quite set up yet, that we've got to do something with it now. We can't just go halfway buy a building and then, okay, here it is. We have to do something further, so, the big thing in the meeting was, where do we get the money from? And as Joe has explained now, where we plan on getting the money from and stuff like that, and we have to move forward with it if we're gonna move into that building. We can't just leave it set there, so.
Correct, and Mr. Chair, looking back, the reason we purchased the building was to make sure that courts could happen in a safe environment because of COVID, making sure that we're spreading out people to make sure that it was as safe as possible. That was the intention with the funds that we purchased it for, and we had those conversations at that committee, that just because you're purchasing it doesn't mean that it's turnkey ready. There would have to be some investment in that to make sure that full transition could happen. And so, I think we were certainly aware that was going to be something we were going to need to do. And I just maintain that I think that it really is a solid investment for Clay County. Then that building will be utilized for a long time to come, even after we get through COVID restrictions and whatnot. So, I appreciate having the different options, and because the dollars that had been put into Fund 13 had really been on hold for the last few years as we kind of navigated what those needs would be, I certainly would be in support of utilizing what's in there. And I think we are at a point where there are some things that there needs to be investment in buildings, and bonding makes sense. Certainly, for the highway department, they were able to do some projects and bond for them and save a substantial amount of money over the course of it. And so I agree with the discussion that's probably the course that we need to take on some other things. But I think that from my perspective, the option 3 seems to make the most sense.
Yeah, Commissioner Mojo, you brought up the courts. I know Steve and I are working with that plan as far as, when they do move out, when we move into that building. And so that's part of the, that capital planning of, what's going to happen with the vacant stuff to get the courts up and running. And so we do plan on bringing that to add into the list of options to try to figure out how that all goes together.
I do hope when you have those conversations with the courts that maybe the state of Minnesota will assist us in the funding of making their courtrooms available for them, so.
I think that's,
I think that's, from what I recall, what happened across the room, their upgrades to that room, I believe the state.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo, they did make the technology upgrades. Historically, they haven't provided any bricks and mortar infrastructure
right.
part of that, but they did do the infrastructure technology-wise, so.
yeah. Yeah, and we'll definitely have that conversation at building committee.
And Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I just would note, in addition to kind of knocking off some of the additional items, Joe's I guess, has stepped forward on two different areas that were originally part of this plan that are end up going to save the county about $80,000. And so we've talked about the impact that Joe and his department can have, and I think right out of the gate, here's one example where we're going to have utilize some of that work done in-house and save some funds through that, so.
Yeah, we're gonna redo, we're taking the furniture project on, we're gonna tear down and set up all the modular furnitures that was pretty spendy, and then, do a lot of the painting that we feel that needs to happen, so.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to move forward with the project using funding option 3.
Second.
You've got a motion by Grant, second by Kevin, to move forward the project using option 3. I guess the one more comment I would have made with our building committee meeting yesterday, I really would want to thank construction engineers for their cooperation in this project. You know, that's, I mean, the items that you came up with that you're going to be helpful with and stuff, and you and Joe working together, it's just, it's almost like you're part of Clay County here. It's just, I just want to thank you. It's been very nice working with you.
We appreciate it too.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion with the motion?
Not related to the motion, but it's in the packet in terms of signage. I think you have a bid for exterior, interior signage. I appreciate the sign on, I think that's 12th Avenue there. I like that. I think we need to, we've talked a little bit about what we're gonna name that facility, the South Campus, and so before we go too far into what signage looks like, I think we should have a discussion on that.
I think that's going to be another item. I want to bring that up
Next?
as another item as far as
Next?
signage. Yes.
Okay, I just didn't know because it was included in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is just for the option, how we're going to pay for it.
Yep, yeah, the 10,000 within the signage kind of covers.
Gotcha.
Anything we're gonna do
Okay,
exterior, so,
perfect, thank you.
option-wise, so.
Okay. Okay, with that in mind, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. One other item.
I was just gonna pop in real quick on the timeline of all this, with approval today. My crew is working in there right now, and then, Ben plans on starting his crew first week in January. And, we hope to be done by move-in date March 1st is our deadline, so.
And I think the other important piece of acting today from the board's perspective is allowing Ben the opportunity to start purchasing things that he'll need that otherwise, if we waited a week or two, would offset our ability to finish, so.
Okay, now we're going to go into the next part there. The name of the building, you know, so I don't know if any of you had, I think we've had Clay County Administrative Services, Clay County Government Center. I guess we'd like to get some ideas. What would you like to see?
I would just prefer not to indicate it as being South Campus. I don't,
That's not in the running, I don't think.
good.
Yeah, we strike that one, I think. Yeah, I'll just to introduce it, I guess, the image you see right now is we just looked at some options of, the Clay County logo on the very front, and when you look at that, it looks like an entrance, and it really isn't, so our goal was not to try to draw people, just to say, that's Clay County, here's the building, and then, on the left side, you have entrance, and that's gonna be what we did originally call it land records, or had an idea of land records, but calling it entrance to try to draw people mainly to that one, as Steve's will not, he won't have as much traffic, so, and then that boulevard sign, similar, you see it at Sanford, whatever it is, to try to catch them to make sure they go off on that, so, and, so that was just that basic start of how the signage, and then, we were gonna leave it up to you to figure out.
Well, at the entrance, we were looking at putting down the name of the offices that are over there, and that, like, assessor's office, tax, stuff, so we will put down who's in those entrances there, that entrance anyway, because we want to make that the main entrance, because we felt that the administration side, there probably not going to be that many people, not that Steve isn't popular, you know, but there aren't going to be as many people coming in to pay taxes over that side, so.
So, yeah, oh, go ahead.
I think that Commissioner Wayland has referred several times to this courthouse becoming a justice center, and I think that in calling it the Clay County Courthouse and Justice Center, I think it really helps. You have to be clear with folks to make sure they know where they're headed for different things, and certainly it would make sense for something like that for this building. I offhand don't exactly know what we want to call it. I think that we've talked about a land records department, and we've talked about administration, and you know, I'm not ready to make a motion on anything right here, but I think whatever we do, I want to be as clear as possible for people so that they don't come to this building and then are frustrated that they have to go to another.
Well, we thought of putting, like you say, we thought about putting land records on the one side, but it includes more. It includes taxes, there's other things it includes
Right.
too. So we just thought of putting entrance and then list the name of the different departments there.
I think we've talked through this, a number of different examples, and the feedback you guys have provided as a commission at different meetings. And I think yesterday, one of the things that we looked at was the Clay County Government Center, and I don't know if how that sits with you as commissioners.
Yeah, we would name that Clay County Government Center on that boulevard sign is how we'd do it then. And we did have some options of putting Government Center on the building, but it looked a little, I guess that was not an option we wanted to choose at that point, but,
So our intention is to have most of our citizens who are coming in for service to enter through one door, is that
yeah,
correct?
to go through the door that says entrance right now.
Yeah.
Yep. And, yeah, and then we would have on vinyl letter on the door itself, recorder, auditor, treasurer, kind of. Or another option is to go on that boulevard sign. I've seen that too, where you have everything, everything down on that side so people can catch it off the
And
boulevard.
I think that's an option. I think we should have just a preliminary look of what that boulevard sign might be, that might be a little taller, and then have a plate for each agency, or,
Yep, we can do
on
that.
there. I mean, it's sometimes just a drawing or a schematic of it can kind of,
Yep.
obviously for people like me whose vision isn't really good, it's got to be fairly big so you can read it.
Yeah. We can put together something for you to visually.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's just it. You don't have to order the sign today.
No,
We
sign is not a
know
big deal.
kind of where you're going. I think being clear, especially with the, the sign on the boulevard to tell people which they go to. The building committee can certainly talk about it maybe, but I thought Frank was gonna give a birthday present to his wife and try to name it after her today or something. For Christmas, not birthday. Joke. It was-
You obviously don't understand our relationship. With that, we'll go on to Jim to get something.
I just wanted to say that we discussed pretty good yesterday about the title of the building itself, and as Commissioner Campbell mentioned, we did not favor going with anything using the word south in it, and I guess the basic reduction came down to the idea that we just call it the Clay County Government Center. I think if we start with that, then these guys can take and start working up some mock-ups for us of different variations of how to make it look in the ultimate scheme of things. And I think if we can make a motion of that, to name it that today, I think, in fact, I would like to make a motion to that effect. We call it the Clay County Government Center.
Okay, we got a motion by Jim to call the building Clay County Government Center. I hear a second.
I will second it. I will second it for the purpose of conversation, and I think, and again, I I would like to see us have a mock-up of how we would physically show that on. And now I like the way that sign looks right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I could visualize that being up higher, and then each department might be listed underneath it so that people get a, you know, including land records. I think that's important. I think it's been a long time we've tried to change the description of our planning and zoning to land records, but.
And just a note, Commissioner Campbell too, is where that is right now in that picture is about the only option we have for setbacks and stuff, not getting in there right away. So we looked at it in the middle and found out that we couldn't do any other way but right here.
Okay.
So that, just something to note that.
Okay, we did have in the budget, or the presentation, that we do have money in there for signage, but you still need to have, as Jim says, you need to know something, how to go forward with it.
Yep.
What to start working with. But as Mr. Campbell has indicated, he'd sort of like to know what it's really gonna look like before you order it.
Sure.
So, but we do have a motion to call it the Clay County Government Center. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll go ahead with that then.
Okay, I'll bring some mock-ups to you then on that end.
Thanks for your work.
Yeah.
Do we have anything further discussion on that we discussed it?
I think we have covered everything on our end. I believe you have a proposal letter afterwards.
Yeah.
So are you looking at STS or anything like that, or are we getting into issues with COVID and?
I'm talking with Janelle to see, I don't know if we'd be able to get so many prisoners, but I think the person that runs STS themselves would be able to help. So I do plan on bringing them in on this process to help.
I guess I'm sure there's gotta be the concern about COVID, and, you know, you're gonna have construction engineers in there and county people in there. I think we just need to always keep that at the.
Right. I've worked, and just to note too, that STS will be taking care of the grounds over there all the time. Not in the wintertime, you know, but all mowing, trimming, all that stuff. Janelle has agreed to that'll be a weekly task for them. So, in there.
Okay, one more item that I not mentioned, but have we notified MCIT about the additional building?
Yes.
That we have insurance of that building? Okay, very good. All right, we'll move on to the next item, and that's to waive penalties and interest. Oh, excuse me, did you have any more?
No.
And again, Ben, thank you very much. To waive interest and late payment of taxes for Mary Johnson. And I think you've got her letter in our packet. I didn't have the letter, wait a minute.
I just had the letter from the one that we took off the agenda.
Do we have a letter from Mary Olson, or, I saw it once, I know.
Johnson.
We had just a note in a death certificate that now Mary, is Mary our guest that's on here?
Mary, are you available? I guess not. Okay.
Mary had the passing of her husband during this last year. And basically, the tax payment was overlooked in this process. She had accumulated a penalty of $69.35 during that process, and is requesting.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there she is. Mary, is that you?
Yeah, this is Mary Johnson.
Thank you for coming on, Mary.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Okay, if you want to explain your situation.
Sure. We just had a tragic death of my husband on February 3rd. He died by suicide, and I decided once the life insurance came in and things were kind of settled to pay off the house this summer. And of course, the spring tax thing said, the statement said, you know, it's in your escrow. And so I'm like, okay, we're good. And I filed it away. And then, you know, I didn't anticipate paying off the house. And with the generosity of others and the life insurance, I was able to do that. And so the second payment for 2020 was overlooked. And when I got a statement a week and a half ago, I paid the taxes right away. And I was just wondering if you would please consider waiving the $69.35 for the penalty and interest, please.
Mr. Chair. Mary, I certainly want to extend my sympathies to you and the loss of your husband. That's tragic and unfortunate, and I know it's quite painful this time of year, so I'm sorry to hear that. Certainly,
Thank
that's,
you.
this request comes fairly in line with the parameters that we usually use to forgive such a request. And I would make a motion to waive the penalties and interest in the amount requested.
Second.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, we've got a motion by Jenny, second by Grant, and I guess I'd have to agree, there's certain items where we can waive the penalties, and a couple of them are oversight and transfer of ownership of property. So I think she would qualify on a couple of things, so I would agree with the motion. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mary, that $69.35 will be forgiven on your taxes.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate your understanding.
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Okay.
Do you have anything further?
No, we already spoke with her. She mailed in the tax amount, and she was just waiting for approval for us to waive the penalty.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay. With that, we'll move on to item number 7, request for approval of the resolution 2020-40 to adopt and implement the Buffalo Red River One Watershed, One Plan, Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan. Kevin, it looks like you're on somewhere.
I am here, guys. Good morning.
I saw your picture before, but I don't see it anymore, but
That's probably good.
that's okay too. But we'll move ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
There I am. I have such a light background that I'm just gonna take it off. Anyway, the reason I'm here this morning is the Buffalo Red One Watershed Plan was approved by the Bowser's full board on October 28th. The next step in the process is for each entity, that's the counties, SWCDs, and the Watershed District, that are involved in this plan, is to adopt and implement the plan. My Clay SWCD board members adopted the plan at our December 10th board meeting, and basically I'm here requesting the county board to approve the resolution to adopt, and we'll begin implementation of the approved plan.
And from us, you just need the approval that they can implement the plan, right?
Yes, about a month ago, I was on the county board agenda, and at that time, the draft proposal was submitted to the North Region Bowser Committee. That passed, and then it was passed on to the full board down in St. Paul, and that was passed down there as well. So just the process that we're going through right now is each entity needs to approve or adopt the plan and start the implementation process of the work plan. We're in the process of working with the other county SWCDs and also the Buffalo Red River Watershed District to come up with a work plan that needs to be approved by Bowser as well. So things are going on behind the scenes, but I guess the process requires each entity of the memorandum of agreement to perform or adopt a resolution stating that the full plan will be adopted and implementation of the plan will progress.
Okay. And as I understand, Bowser also, on Thursday, I attended the meeting with Bowser, and they also approved the Wild Rice Watershed. So we should be going through the same thing with them, right?
You're exactly right, Commissioner Gross. They were approved on the 17th. I haven't yet to get a copy of the letter basically stating that, and that's forthcoming. But you're right, I will be in front of you shortly, I'm assuming with the exact same thing, just a different name on the plan. So you're right, Frank.
Okay. So right now, we're talking about the Buffalo Red River One Watershed One Plan, Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan.
Right, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, we can shorten that thing up a little bit, all right. Any question or motion?
This is certainly something that we've all been a part of for a long time, and I've had several discussions with not only Kevin Kassenberg at the Watershed, or the SWCD, but members of the Watershed as we've moved through this. So I would joyfully make a motion to approve this resolution, as this has been a long time coming.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Cheney, second by Grant to adopt and implement the resolution. I don't want to repeat that again, but any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to support this. I always cautious when something gets to be this, when you switch a plan that goes to a statewide process or whatever, that I'm just hoping that down the road, if there becomes issues, that we still have an appropriate voice to make changes. That's my only concern in something like this. But I think for the good of the intent of it, I think it's good. But
I have to agree with you on this. That is a good plan for the watersheds to get together with the Soil and Water Conservation District and all the different departments and DNR and stuff like that, to come up with one plan and not each one have a separate plan, and come up with one plan for the district. Kevin, you have any further comment? Excuse me, Kevin Kassenberg?
I don't. I thank you, guys.
Okay. With that, we've got a motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. That motion passes. I think, and the next thing we've got is Dave, who's just walking in the door. And we got Clayton and Justin. We're going to be talking about several different items with our county engineer. First thing is the approval of the contract for hydraulic studies for 4 bridge replacement projects.
Right, so these are upcoming projects. Justin's been working with Houston Engineering on these. This is work that has to be done in order to get the permitting for these bridge replacements. I'll let him give us a little bit of information on it.
Yeah, so we got a proposal for 4 crossing locations in Clay County. It's to provide the hydraulic studies and the risk assessment. Like Dave mentioned, they are required by the state and for our permitting process. And we've had a really good working relationship with Houston. Each site is not to exceed $4,200 for a total of $16,800. Normally they come in $3,500, but they just kind of gave us a not to exceed number for these ones.
Okay.
I'd move approval of the request.
We've got a motion by Kevin. Second by Jim to approve the request to do the hydraulic studies for the 4 bridge replacements. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the next item, we led a lot of box culverts or bridge replacements this past year. I think we ended up doing a dozen of them, and they were in a little bit different packages. And in this package with this contractor, it was with Landwehr Construction. I think they did the very first 3 bridge replacements that we did. One was on County Road 2, state aid dollars on that one. One was on County Road 12, and that one had been in the hopper for many, many years, probably over 10 years before finally some of the bridge bond funds trickled down, and we were able to make that replacement. And there was one package in there on the township system. I'll just let Justin run through the contract a little bit on that.
Yeah, so we'd be looking to get approval for 3 separate final contract vouchers that were lumped into one contract. The ones on CASA 2 and CASA 12 both had bridge bonding dollars on it. And then, like David mentioned, the one in Morgan is utilizing town bridge funds. For the first one, SAP 014-599-109, that is the one in Morgan Township. The final contract to be approved would be $154,482. For the one on CASA 2, the project number is SAP 014-602-027. The final contract to be approved would be $294,524.20. The final one would be SAP 014-612-016, and the final contract to be approved would be $163,742.20. I thought all the projects turned out really well. They were all completed on time. And I thought Landwehr was a really good contractor to work with.
There was a little overrun, you can see on the one on 2, and that had to do with the detour signing on that one. After we built it, we realized we didn't have a detour in the plans, and I just didn't think that was gonna work. It's such a busy road that just to let the traffic find their own way, so we did implement a detour, did a change order on that, as well as the other portion of that $12,000. There was a very unstable base underneath there, and it required more granular borrow, so between the two, they accounted for the $12,000. It is covered on our, on the bridge bond funds. The way these work is we're guaranteed a certain amount based on the bid, and then if there's any ups or downs, other than that, it does fit within our budget on that, even though it is a little bit over.
Mr. Chair, I would move the approval of the final contract amounts for the 3 projects noted.
I'll second the motion.
We've got a motion by Kevin, second by Jenny to approve the final contracts on the 3 bridge replacements. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, now we've got 3 more bridges we're going to talk about.
Right, and this is the project, if you remember, we partnered with the Buffalo Red River Watershed. Dennis Drews from Frazee was a contractor on these. They went in and out incredibly fast. Did a very, very good job. Houston Engineering did the inspection work on there, and we kind of oversighted that a little bit. Everything went really, really well on these. It was a very good project, and I kind of foresee maybe more of this happening in the future between the county and the watershed, replacing some of these on the ditch system. Justin, if you want to run through these real quick.
Yeah, so all 3 of these structures were in Kurtz Township. The projects turned out good. The first one is SAP 014-599-110. The final contract to be approved would be $62,378. The second one is SAP 014-599-111. The final contract to be approved would be $81,040.00. And the final one is on our CASA 7. And the project number is SAP 014-607-009. And the final contract to be approved on that one would be $66,602.00.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, even though I'm disappointed we were $8 off on one of them, I would move approval of the final contract on the 3 projects listed.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Kevin, second by Grant to approve the contracts, and we'll instruct Dave to try and get closer on the bids. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then we'll move into the item that we discussed on our meeting the other day with our replacement of unit number 156.
All right, so this is a replacement of one of our tandem axle trucks. What we typically do is we get a hold of a couple of different vendors. These things are very well put together, being that they have to, they deal with these things quite frequently with counties, so it's pretty well put together with regard to cooperative purchasing or Minnesota State bid. The past several years, we have been purchasing Freightliners from iState, and we are really running into a lot of issues with wiring with these things. So there's costs there. We've got our own staff that does as much as they can. We've also got vendor dollars on these, making the replacements on the wiring harnesses, different things that we can't do, as well as there's downtime, and it always happens on the worst day when we get snowstorms and different things. And so we've got quite a few of these Freightliners in our shop, and for many years, when we had good weather, and if we were doing work that didn't require a lot of hauling, some of these issues weren't showing up, but we're really seeing a lot of these things. And I was been approached by our shop staff and our maintenance staff, bringing light to the issue, and we brought it to the highway committee along with documentation showing all the different times where we've had to make repairs and all the different costs put together. And I guess we'd really like to make a change and try a different truck. It's not completely apples to apples because the Kenworth that we would like to recommend approval on does have a little bigger motor, but it's absolutely as close as we can get to comparing the two. Not all the different trucks have the exact same thing, but these are as close as we can pair them. Maybe I'll let Clayton give a little information from his end on kind of the issue that he's dealing with.
We started seeing all these problems with the wiring, and all of those dollars, guys, that's just wiring issues. That has nothing to do with changing a tire, a cutting edge, putting a light bulb in, or anything like that. Those dollars are strictly nothing but wiring harness issues. And what we've found is that when these trucks were newer and we had more open winters, they weren't being used that much in the winter and being bounced down the frozen roads. And in the summer, we didn't use them that much. Well, with the road foreman we have now, he's like, let's get this stuff done, and and our trucks are on the move all the time. They're being used a lot more than what they used to early on. And we're noticing now that the more we use them, the problems are just substantially getting more and more all the time as far as having to repair them. Michael and I, the mechanic and I in there, we try to do as much of it as we can, but there's times where I have to farm it out for help because we can have 3 and 4 trucks down at one time with these issues and we can't keep up with it. And so last winter, I got approval from the road foreman, and 3 of us went on a mission we went to Itasca County, we went to Beltrami County, we went to the city of Bemidji, and I was on the phone with some southern counties and talking about trucks with all of this. And what we found in our investigating is that the Kenworths were the most dependable ones out of all the different brands out there that gave the least amount of trouble. That's why we're veering towards this, to give these a try, because right now we're throwing good money at a problem that's not going away, guys, and it's getting worse. And we've got these trucks we're going to have for a while. So these problems that we have written down on these spreadsheets, that's just going to keep compounding. Matter of fact, we were out for a half a day yesterday, just to let you know, and 122 is already back. Michael's working on it this morning with more wiring issues this morning.
I think these spreadsheets that you're talking about, we had at the meeting, but I don't think the commissioners have those spreadsheets, so.
Oh, shoot.
When you refer to spreadsheets.
I mean, what you're saying though, yeah.
No,
that-
I think they're talking about this one.
Right, it wasn't in my
I understand what you're saying. I mean, it doesn't make sense to keep throwing dollars at a lemon product, and so if you're
I
able.
apologize that you guys don't have one, but for instance, unit 126, in a year and a half, we put $12,000 into it with vendors. That's between 2 vendors working on them with these wiring issues. And it was in the shop. Michael and I did as much as we could. We've got another truck, 125. We spent $10,600 on that one with vendors. That's not Michael and I working on it. And we've got oodles of hours on it. And then if we take 122, we've spent almost $4,000 on that one, and a whole list of time Michael and I have on it. And 120, we've got pushing $6,000 on that one. And these problems they're just compounding and getting worse. We've talked to the Freightliner about this, the local dealer, which they have no control over this, and I've voiced my opinion on it, and they said, yeah, no, we know what your pains are. And I said, well, are they ever looking at doing something different? And he says, as of right now, nothing is going to change with Freightliner for right now, the way they're doing their wiring harnesses. So I can't see us spending money on a Freightliner when we've got all these issues already. I think it's time we need to quit throwing this money away and try a different brand truck.
So is the wiring harness issues part of the truck itself?
The truck itself. What happens when you order a truck, with a winter package. So if you were to buy a gravel truck, let's just say a gravel truck, that wiring harness is a little less involved than what a plow truck, a winter one is, okay? But what's happening is it's the way they're building the wiring harnesses and the way they think they're protecting them is actually causing us the issues. And a lot of other brands are doing the same thing, and I've talked to the DOT and they've had issues also. And I guess what really opened our eyes was Itasca County, they had lots of trouble and they got tired of throwing money at it, and they said it took a little bit to get the decision made to do it, but they've got 40 Kenworths now, and they have very little wiring problems.
I just wanted to be sure that, because when we buy these trucks, then a lot of times we go to another vendor to outfit it.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that there's not something there too that's.
No, actually, we're not, like we use Towmaster is what puts the winter packages on these. The truck comes with a winter harness in it, and then Towmaster ties into that. It's the manufacturer's wiring harness we're having trouble with, not Towmaster's.
Okay, you've explained it well, thank you.
So what we would like to do is we'd like to get approval to purchase the Kenworth. It's right here in Fargo at Walworth Kenworth. They are utilizing it's a Sourcewell contract for that. And then the box and hydraulics would be almost identical to the last several that we've done. That's out of Towmaster. They use Minnesota State bid on theirs. Between the two, we would not have a trade-in. So Kenworth, they don't deal with used trucks very often. Their trade-in was extremely low, as you can kind of see on there. $10,000 is not going to work for us. Clayton's been doing a lot of research on an outlet called MinBid. It's kind of through the state, and he's had you've talked to people, had a lot of good luck with that. And I truly think our truck should be at least worth $35,000. That's the shortage that we are short in internal service fund. And it also coincidentally matches up with what Freightliner did offer us if we choose to go that route. So I guess we feel pretty comfortable we should be able to get $35,000 on the open market. Just the other day, I know City of Hawley sold a truck on the side of the road and they got $16,000 for it, and it was a 2008 model. They sold a truck in their fleet cheaper than the one that we sold them. We sold them one about a year ago or so, and they paid almost $1,000 less for it than the one they sold on the side of the road. So I think the market is good out there. It's a good truck. It's older. It's met our needs. We've had it for 16 years. So Unit 156 is our current Felton truck. It doesn't get used all that often. It's kind of the part-time truck. We would sell that one on MinBid, and then if we do get $35,000 or more, it completely lines up with what's in the savings for the internal service fund.
Well, it certainly makes sense to have a spare truck in the fleet as well. I don't think we really talked about that, but I think the benefit to the folks that live out in rural Clay County would really appreciate that, especially if we're in a bind like we got last year with all the snow. So it seems to make sense, and we'll just see if that's a better brand to go with. I appreciate though that you went to counties that have a variety of weather events like we do, and so thanks for your work on that, Clayton. I really appreciate it.
Well, we started looking at it the last couple of years, and I guess what really opened my eyes, I didn't realize that we had spent that much. And then what I did is I had Terry up front. She pulled all the records back 3 years. Then we itemized it for our 4 trucks that cost us the most money. And it was kind of an eye-opener. We knew we were spending a lot of money, but I didn't know we were spending that much money. And the downtime, that just kills us.
Okay, we got a request to purchase the Kenworth truck to replace Freightliner. Well, not really to replace them, but we eventually will sell that.
Right.
So,
There was a little error in my spreadsheet at the very top there. It says to buy along the line with the quote from iState. Should have been down in the blue section, which would show our hopeful request to purchase from the Kenworth.
I guess we discussed this quite a bit at the highway department, and I'll make a motion to go forward with purchasing the truck. Getting a motion by myself, and second by Jim. We move forward. Any further discussion?
Is that on the truck and so one price is from Wallwork and one price is from Towmaster?
That includes the box, right?
You get the whole truck. Whatever it takes, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we got the mechanics truck we gotta talk about.
Right. So what we'd like to do is replace Unit 109. It's a 2012, it's a 3/4 ton. The truck before this was a 3/4 ton regular cab Ford, and we took the box off of it and we bought a service body. And once that truck went down the line, we bought the current truck that we have, and we took the service body off the Ford, put it on this Chevy. And so it's already, it's been with 2 trucks already, and we'd like to replace with a little heavier truck. So the current request is to replace the 2012 with a 1-ton regular cab 4-wheel drive pickup. We would, the plan would be to purchase cab and chassis only, and then to buy a new service body to replace that. What we'd like to do is purchase it out of Fergus Falls at Erickson Chevrolet, which is essentially sister company to the Nelson that we bought with trucks before. They gave us a trade value of $11,500 for the 2012. The service body, there's a couple options there that we looked at. One would be replacing with the exact same style and same brand that we have. That would be from Burt's. The other one would be from Truck Utilities. Maybe I can have Clayton just give a little information on the difference there.
Yeah, the difference between Truck Utilities and the Birch Truck one is that it's the thickness of the metal on the service body, the size of the service body, the organization ability of the cabinets and everything for the tools and whatnot, and the what we're running into right now with the service body we have is that you put 2 motor grader tires in there or Packer tires in there, and with more blades and stuff, we're overweight for one thing. We have to go to the bigger style truck with the 1-ton, but we have to also, we need a bigger service body because you get 2 motor graders tires in the back, and you guys know how big they are. Pretty soon you don't have any room for anything else in there. And we carry jacks and whatnot along with it. We've got an air compressor that we purchased we have in the back to try to make ourselves more self-sufficient out there, fixing the things on the road. And the service body from Truck Utilities is much more conducive to fit our needs than what the Burt's truck equipment is. And that's why we're looking at trying to be able to get the Truck Utilities one. It will fit our purposes way better. Like I said, the organizational part of Truck Utilities of where the tool drawers are, and because the one we have right now doesn't even have tool drawers in it. So, you open a door and there's your scrambled mess of tools. And the Truck Utilities one has a much better organization part, so you can keep sockets and wrenches and everything more separated and easier to grab when you need them. I'd like Dave was saying, this is going to be a 3,500, but right now we drive around, and if you've ever seen it, it drives around like this. It looks like a station wagon with 15 kids in the back. I mean, it's too light for what we got.
That's definitely an overload 15 there.
I've been working with Lori a little bit on this. I feel like we do need to sit down and completely dial it in. Our internal service funds, so when we bought that's the existing service box that we have, we used maintenance dollars on it, and it didn't get into the internal service fund, which kind of shorted us a little bit. So there is no internal service fund dollars for replacement of the service body that we do have. There's $34,473.62 in the truck, so there's plenty of money in the truck, but we don't have any money in the service body, which should have gotten in there, but it didn't. And I think, like I said, when we used maintenance dollars back 10 years ago to buy this, it didn't get in an internal service fund like it should. There's a couple things that we can do. We can either utilize service dollars from another piece of equipment. We have a gravel disc that would just about break even on this, but we'd kind of like to not do that if we could. So I'd like to work with Lori on coming up with it's about $8,877 short between the two. And I feel like between her and I, we can either, I don't know, if she'd rather use general fund dollars, I know I've got general fund dollars remaining for 2020, or if she would rather use internal service fund dollars and keep it separate. But we're going to work on that this afternoon a little bit and come up with a plan forward on it. We do have the existing box from the 2012 GMC that's never been on the road. So we take it off, put the service body on. We would sell that at that min bid site. And at a minimum, we should get $500 to $700 on that as well.
Okay, any further questions for Dave? Or any questions? This is number 5 we're working on right now. No. Again, we discussed this at the highway tracking meeting, and everything seemed to make sense for us, what we came up with, so I'll make a motion to approve to replace unit number 109. Okay, I got a motion by myself and a second by Jenny to replace unit 109. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was a little scary, that's for sure.
Before the 50-mile-an-hour winds come? Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for explaining this stuff. With that, we're going to a discussion on the final levy for our budget for the county. Mr. Larson's gonna take that part.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As you recall, back in December 8th, we held our Truth in Taxation meeting, and that was really one of the final steps of our budget process that started this past June with our department heads establishing their budget, bringing those forward to the county administrator and the county auditor, Lori Johnson, and then before this board for presentations. There are multiple adjustments that we went through this process, and this board provided some clear evaluation and direction to us through the process. On September 22nd, the preliminary budget of 4.99 was adopted by this board. Over the next couple months, we continue to look at that. A number of minor adjustments were made. On November 24th, as a budget update, in preparation of the Truth in Taxation, the motion was made to utilize additional revenue funds to lower the net levy from 4.99 to 3.49. While this board has certainly been cautious about utilizing reserve funds or one-time payments to offset the levy, it was felt that we could do this for 2 reasons that we spoke about. Higher than expected revenues over the expenditures in 2019. We had high return on investments than expected, and also participated in the fourth quarter hiring freeze. Secondly, we also received CARES funding this past year, which allowed us to reimburse ourselves for positions that are in the budget that were significantly different than what was planned prior to the pandemic. And we had a number of positions within public health that we assigned that significantly different piece to and were able to be reimbursed. And so because these funds that we had in our reserve were already asked of our citizens, the board felt comfortable in increasing those reserve amounts. Again, as I mentioned, on December 8th, we had Truth in Taxation, where the information for today's budget and resolution were shared. We did have a citizen that did come forward to express concern with any type of tax increase, especially for those on a fixed income. And we certainly appreciate that our citizens participating in government. Their feedback is important, and this board clearly understands the importance of being good stewards of their tax dollars, and so we appreciate any feedback that we receive from our citizens. At the end of the Truth in Taxation presentation, the board asked Lori to bring forward a resolution for final consideration and potential approval. And so with that, this morning, if you look on your 3rd page, we have 2 items for your approval, request for approval this morning. On the 3rd page, you have the 2021 total budget. This year is $110,447,500. And I would be looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
You got a motion by Grant, second by Jim to approve the 110,000,000, 474, whatever figure that is, $447,500. Any further discussion?
Just to note for the public that a significant portion of that comes from the state of Minnesota. That's not the dollars that are levied.
That's correct.
Which you're coming to next.
We're coming to next, that's correct. And this, oh, sorry. Yeah.
You thought you were going to approve that right away.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move on to next item, explaining that a little bit further.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Commissioner Campbell mentioned, as an arm of the state, we conduct a number of things for both the state and federal government and receive funding through that process. And so of our $110 million, a significant portion of that comes from the state and federal government. What we're asking for 2021 from our citizens at Clay County through Resolution 20-41 would be establishing a levy of $36,685,718, which would be a final net levy increase of 3.49%. And with that, I'd yield for any questions.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment on that. So this is down 1.5% from our preliminary levy.
That is correct, Mr.
And, you explained part of our thought process, at least it was mine, that I agreed with that, about the, why we have the ability to reduce it. And those of us that served on the CARES committee, we worked pretty hard to make sure that we could distribute that in as many ways to help our businesses and community resiliency and those types of things. And what I think this does is this also then gives some relief to every taxpaying citizen in Clay County that, that this year more than ever, they need to have. And so I was more than happy to offer that suggestion to reduce it by that 1.5%. And it goes to this, I can't remember the woman's name that was at our, and she talked about, we need to be careful because sometimes the more you increase, the more you can have more people impacted to where they're going to need additional help. It's kind of a catch-22 you can be in. But so with that, I would move the adoption of the final levy.
Okay, got a motion by Kevin to approve the adoption of the final levy of 3.49%.
I'll second that.
Got a second by Grant. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
First, I want to thank Steve Larson for all the work in getting us to where we are today. And I know that comes with a lot of teamwork from Lori Johnson and every department head as well. This has certainly been a challenging budget cycle. It's maybe been a moving target just because of the unknowns of what COVID has presented in terms of all of our departments, but also the challenges that our citizens are facing as well. And so I appreciate you being responsive to all of the different concerns and questions that have been brought your way. I do cautious us a little bit in terms of what next year and next budget cycle will bring. There were so many mandates that were out of our control in terms of how business and small business are affected and how people and employment are affected. And the status quo really is going to have to go out the window because there's going to be a lot of pain in terms of businesses that are able to even get through this, and that is not on their own. We heard that last week from citizens. That was before the governor came out with some more restrictions as well. And I'm not here to say whether that's someone has the right to do that or not. But what I will say is we need to be very deliberate in terms of the dollars that are spent to make sure that they are the most bang for your buck, but also deliberate in doing things, knowing that there are businesses right now in Clay County that won't be here in 1 year. And there are people making what they are right now that have dipped into savings or whatever that won't be able to write that real estate tax out next year. And I know we do that every year, but I feel that it's going to be exacerbated. And so, you know, I support this and I support the work that has gone into this. But there have been so many things since September when we approved that, and even since when we had truth and taxation, that have changed. And we can't control it, but we just have to be cautious.
I couldn't agree more with those comments. I think they're spot on, and I think, you know, when we looked at, you know, 2022, when we start next year dealing with that, we're gonna really have to be real cautious. We have dipped into our reserves this year to ease the pain. But I think we're gonna really have to understand more than ever, from our government standpoint, the difference between wants and needs. I think that's gonna be really important to distinguish those. You know, this woman that was here, she talked about her only source of income is Social Security. And I think the Social Security increase for 2021 is 1% or 1.5%. So, you know, that says a lot, you know, when we're in there with 3.5% just from the county standpoint in terms of tax increases. The last thing I want to see is somebody who's surviving on Social Security to have that all eaten up based on, you know, government increases. And, you know, when they have to deal with inflationary costs with food and everything else that's out there. So we really, 2022, when we get in that budget cycle, that's gonna be quite the conversation. But I am really pleased that we actually moved off of a preliminary levy for the first time since my 18 years on this board.
That's a long time, Kevin, 18. Very good service. Thank you for your service. Okay. Where the heck are we at? We're gonna vote on that.
Yeah.
Such a touching, I mean, it's very well said. Thank you very much. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Okay, before we go into committee reports, I got one item I'd like to talk about. And that item has to do with the time of our county administrator has lost his vacation time this year because of the COVID. I know one of the goals last year we gave him was to make sure that he keeps his vacation time, that utilizes it and uses it up. But I know many times this year, he says, well, I'm taking this week off, or I'm taking this Friday off. And later in that day, I get an email from him, or late that night, I get an email from him. He's working again. So I feel that he's missed out on a lot of opportunities to take vacation time this year. And he's gonna lose that time, I think, a lot because of COVID. I look at the meetings I go to. He's at the meetings, he has to attend a lot of the meetings that I go to, and there's 5 of us commissioners. He attends a lot of the meetings that you guys go to. So it's not only just his meetings, which are numerous, with his staff, he goes to the meetings with us. So it's just, we're putting a lot of pressure, a lot of time that he has to take. So I would like to make a motion that we, just for this year only, that we repay him for his vacation time lost. If there's any other type of, I don't know, if you're gonna amend the motion or whatever, but my motion is to pay him full for vacation time lost. Go ahead.
Thanks, Frank. Both Kevin and I served on that CARES Act committee, and
Mr. Chairman, just because we're not supposed to have discussion without a second, I will second the motion for the purpose of discussion. Thank you.
there were a lot of times that, like you say, Steve had let us know that there were times that he was going to take to eat down at the balance. I think what we're talking about is the balance of vacation time carried over. And because we hired someone who'd been an employee of Clay County for a long time, you had a higher balance coming into it. And so I agree, there were times when you were supposed to be on vacation, and then we're in a 4-hour meeting, or I think you were supposed to be on a day of vacation during the district meeting, and you were on that call the entire time. And I appreciate having that conversation. I think with being the administrator of a county, I think it's understood that there are times that you're going to respond to the needs of the county at times that are not the normal 9 to 5, right? I mean, that's understood with a lot of your jobs, and same with county attorney. I mean, there are times that you're gonna respond to things that are outside of normal working time, but I think what we're really getting into is honoring the time that you had requested off to be with your family, and then not being able to do that because of COVID, right? I mean, that's really what we're getting into. I think it's an important piece. One thing I've encouraged you to do is utilize your assistant county attorney or county administrator to go to some of those meetings that you don't have to have a presence at all the time. So I think that that's something as we move forward that will continue to be important, but looking back, I know that the level of things that we're dealing with have really limited your ability to take vacation time with your family as well.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this COVID has just been extreme. What's gone on and the coordination efforts, and I think for all of our employees to hear this and to understand that we as commissioners have gotten lengthy, detailed, sometimes daily emails from our county administrator onto things out of the ordinary that he's had to deal with this year. It's been incredible. I, for one, am typically not a proponent of doing this type of thing. I think COVID changed everything from the standpoint of somebody who has to lead in all of these different areas. I'm going to say right now that going into 2021, whether there's COVID here or not, you need to try to take that time. You need to take it just like everybody does for their own mental health and well-being to get away. I think that's critically important to do that. I'm going to support, Mr. Chairman, your motion to do this, and I do it from those reasons, and Commissioner Mojo just kind of emphasized it too, that the efforts that you've led our county departments through on this pandemic has been exceptional, and your time with your family has suffered from it, and you deserve to be compensated for that.
I think those are good words. I mean, like I say, last year when we gave him his goals for this coming year, we didn't have COVID included. So if you throw that into the mix, it's just a different situation, and I appreciate all the stuff that you did. So, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and again, thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Certainly not expected. I do understand that this is not an 8 to 4:30 job, and I have a great teamwork of group around me, and this board has been extremely supportive. During this last year, it has created a lot of challenges, and having said that, I do appreciate this gesture. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
He never looks depressed over it.
Well, keeps his mask on. There's always a smile back there. Okay, we'll go into committee reports. Grant, you want to start us out today?
Yeah, let's see, I had, last week, we had the, Moorhead Clay Joint Powers Board, to discuss, the land acquisitions, involving the diversion, and, we had a few actions there, and, there'll be more, certainly more coming up. I think, what did they say, Kevin? We had about 500 transactions so far, so, which totally is about a third of all the transactions that will be involved, but, and that includes flowage easements and everything, so.
But that's both Cass and Clay.
Right.
500 is.
That's a combination for the total project, so that's moving along. We had a solid waste advisory and talked about the transfer station and the project that's going on right now out at the landfill. And let's see, we had diversion authority meeting and just general business there and finishing up for the year's end. And, let's see, we had Prairie Lakes also, and I'm sure Kevin will report on that. So that was it for me.
Jenny?
Thank you. Last week I had, after our board meeting, a meeting with Matt Jacobson from our planning and zoning department and a meeting with Brian Melton, our attorney, to just discuss the upcoming planning commission item, possible variance request. That item was subsequently withdrawn that evening. I think we'll maybe see another application revised at a later point, but that meeting was canceled. We had a MetroCog meeting on Tuesday as well, year-end items, and talked about several of the studies going on. If you go to MetroCog's website, there's several opportunities for citizen input on some studies, and specifically the 17th Avenue corridors. That's important to note for Clay County citizens, and we also talked about staff COLA issues. On Wednesday, I had a meeting with Eric Dodds from AE2S, a Teams meeting in regards to questions that he had about organic farmland and properties that have been acquired that may not be needed with the current project, and just opinions on how to move forward with farmers in the area. So I had directed him to contact those farmers directly to discuss that further. That afternoon, we had a land management meeting, lots of updates as they move forward. Cass County Joint Board is working through some items, and carry over a little bit about the discussion that I had with Eric Dodds earlier. Lots going on there, so it's important to have our presence at that. I did have a lengthy phone call with the mayor of Moorhead, Jonathan Judd, in regards to the local business concerns that we had at this board meeting. As we all know, the governor had changed some of the furthered some of the regulations. So comments on how we move forward in collaborating to continue to advocate for our local business concerns. That stemmed a little bit into economic development concerns, making sure Clay County is well represented in the conversations that are having with our partners across the river, but also with the Lakes Country Service Co-op. Is that? yep, that one as well, to make sure that
Well, you West Central.
West Central, sorry, making sure that we're working with West Central in terms of the new CARES funding, not CARES funding, but coronavirus relief funding, and then the meeting that we'll have later, after this meeting, for business relief. Important discussions all over as we try to help everyone get through this, but that concludes my reports.
Hey, Kevin?
All right, last Tuesday, there was a highway tracking meeting. You'll have to report on that because I had a conflict and had to leave, so I wasn't able to attend that. Wednesday morning, we had the Prairie Lake Solid Waste meeting. Everything is going really well there. Like I mentioned earlier, they did a $2 million bond to speed up the ability for that facility to get some things that will enhance its ability for revenues. And that was, they got that bond at 0.3%, which is pretty remarkable. It is the 22nd right now, and we still do not have any building insurance coverage for that facility come January 1, which is just a few days away. There's been a special meeting called of MCIT for, it's 1:30 on Monday the 28th, which I am going to be attending on behalf of Prairie Lakes. And the goal is for MCIT, they're still thinking that they will have some insurance agency that's going to put forward a proposal. So, at the last Prairie Lakes meeting, they authorized myself and Commissioner from Wadena, Bill Stearns, and our Director of Prairie Lakes they authorized us to approve some sort of a decision so that we do have insurance in force on January 1. It might be something that's short-term for 3 or 4 months until we can get something different that goes on. And this is going to be for there's four waste energy facilities in Minnesota that are in the same boat, and they're trying to team us all together to make sure that we have that coverage, so. Then on that afternoon, we had the public outreach meeting and the land management meeting. And I do want to say that Commissioner Mojo, you spoke up during that meeting about the importance of some of the lands that we no longer need, and how they're gonna, how we're gonna deal with those, and how the priority should be. And I was quite pleased to hear your comments, that the people who may have had the lands before should have some sort of opportunity to regain those lands, or certainly that it's allowed to be put back into production. And I appreciated your comments there and I think that meant a lot for the group to hear that. On the 17th, we had a solid waste meeting in the morning, and we did talk about the resource recovery campus update. We saw some more pictures of the citizen drop-off thing at the landfill, which is going to be great. We talked about land purchase from the city. We had some folks from MPCA there talking about a grant application, an additional grant application, and then the timeline of the project for the transfer station. That same day that we had the MCC JPA meeting, Commissioner Whalen talked about that, and then we also had the diversion meeting at 3:30 that day. And I guess I want to emphasize again that Commissioner Whalen he's been involved with the solid waste for a long time, and he's attended his last meeting now of the Diversion Authority, and he got some good recognition from the Diversion Authority, and rightfully so, for all his efforts from your trips to Washington, D.C., and working with the state. We all owe you some gratitude for that, so thank you for that. But if, you know, just to relive a little, I remember the countless times, and this was back when the Corps of Engineers first came out, they wanted this diversion in Minnesota, and I don't know that I could count up the number of times you and I had to go out and meet with landowners on the Minnesota side to try to reassure them that just to be patient and this thing would be done, but a lot of meetings at Perkins and all those places with many landowners, but anyway, your involvement on that, just really want to point out how important that was to a project that's really going well now, so. I think concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Jim?
Thank you. Yesterday, I attended the building committee that we had discussed during our meeting earlier today. And then last Wednesday, I audited the FM Flood Diversion Finance Committee. I was not able to log into the meeting, but I was able to get onto it on the Fargo City website. And Council Member Hendrickson will vouch for me being there. And the Flood Diversion Finance Committee reviewed 2020 and 2021 budget details and the anticipating public-private partnership bids coming in. It's difficult to move cost estimates going forward without having those bids in hand. Looking to January now to hiring a finance director to the diversion staff. They are going to talked about conducting a classification and compensation study initiated with Gallagher to put things in perspective regarding staff hires both now and into the future. The motion did pass on the finance board for the Gallagher contract. Then Attorney Shockley discussed the WIFIA loan update and showing the completion date of the project in May of 2027. And the finance board also approved numerous diversion authority memorandums of understanding with Cass County, North Dakota DOT, Mid-Continent Communications, Southeast Cass Water Resources District, and Southeast Cass Maple River, et cetera. All 10 motions were approved in one group, and then policy discussion took place as what Commissioners Campbell and Mojo just brought up about unused land parcels purchased in the land acquisitions. And the fact that the diversion authority may have paid a certain price for them as part of the acquisition, but that the owners would be able to buy them back at probably less than what that figure was. So that's my report.
Okay. My report is on Tuesday with highway tracking. Several of the items that we discussed there has already been taken care of at the meeting, but other items that we discussed was the Hawley MOU that we're going to be working on with Hawley. We're going to do some further work with that, to get together with them. We still haven't talked about county pit royalties. We were going to have meetings with the townships, but we were unable to do that because of COVID. Those meetings were canceled, and we still haven't brought that up. So we're still looking at increasing the rates from for the royalties, for pit royalty. One other thing we discussed, Moorhead has sent a request to increase our payment towards the 11th Street underpass, and that's going to take a lot of discussion yet. We didn't settle anything there yet. Nothing was moved forward on that, and we didn't put anything on the agenda today, but there's going to have to be a lot more discussion on that with our highway tracking meeting and stuff like that. Wednesday, Historical Society, there again, they're closed. Not much action going on. No, I shouldn't say not much action. They're doing a lot of inventory, and they're looking at what to do with some of the inventory. A lot of people have given stuff there, and okay, is it Clay County related, or is it just antique stuff? Does it relate to Clay County? So they're going through a lot of that stuff and inventorying that and itemizing it. Also, Given Hearts Day, which we're already talking about, which is coming up in February. If you need a place to give some money to, they're looking for your donations if you're willing to give there. Thursday, Bowser had their meeting concerning the wild rice. They approved the wild rice, one watershed, one plan, which was brought up during that meeting, and they approved it at that meeting. I guess one thing I wasn't probably was aware of or not, but at Bowser, they've got a lot of things to do, and I didn't realize that Cheryl Van Amberg, who's our representation for Buffalo Watershed, he's the chairman of that thing, and held a very good meeting. Yesterday, we had the building committee meeting, and most of the stuff was discussed with Joe when he was here. One item that we haven't discussed is requests we received from the judges or from the people. I mean, they're already anticipating, there's gonna be some open spaces here, so they're looking at moving the first floor people up to second floor, and there are all kinds of plans in there, but I think that's all kinds of things that we discussed a little bit, that I think Kevin touched on a little bit, little state involvement in funding, and that would be nice, the projects that they got are a little bit of money involved in, and I think that's, we may need a little participation there. Okay, I guess that's it for me.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I'd notice on our agenda for today on the calendar, for the upcoming meetings, we do have that there's on a special meeting on the 5th Tuesday, next Tuesday, but 2 lines underneath it, it says that there's no meeting. Because of that, I just want to clarify for the public that there will be a meeting next Tuesday.
I noticed, excuse me, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's all I had to say.
I noticed that too, but she does have it there, there is a meeting on Tuesday, so you got yourself covered there. Either way, you're right.
Colleen's always right, but I, just for the public, want them.
We thought we caught you on one there, but no. Okay, Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Tuesday, participated in highway tracking, which has already been addressed. Wednesday morning, I participated in AMC webinar on the mass vaccination. We had representatives from DHS and different counties sharing their plans. Kathy's put forward a plan already, as she's shared, and many of the issues that we discussed were items that Kathy has shared with this board. That afternoon, I participated in the Minnesota Legislative Update, sponsored by the Chamber. Senator Eakin, Representative Marquardt, and Representative-elect Keeler were present, along with the Commissioner of Transportation. Focus of kind of was looking at what's going to be coming up in the next legislative session. Representative Marquardt talked about being pleasantly surprised with the forecast for this year, but overly concerned about the $1.2 billion deficit for the 22-23 biennium. It talked about looking at making everything's on the table, including spending cuts, freezes, looking for different revenues, and again, their goal is trying to stay away from one-time shifts in funding. COVID-19, business relief and border city relief specifically, and retraining of those in the service industry who may have lost their jobs as a focus. Senator Eakin talked about his priorities of ensuring a structurally sound budget, expanding on the investments of border to border, broadband for our business community, ensuring that oftentimes when there needs to be cuts, that he identified that health and human services are often the ones that are singled out. And so he has a focus on ensuring that long-term care facilities and facilities with disabilities make sure that they are dealt with properly. And again, his focus of property tax relief and disparities of the border city. On the 17th, I participated in the the SWAC meeting that Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Whalen have discussed. That morning, we had county management received or an update from Kathy McKay. We ended end of the year discussions. When we talk about teamwork, working together, our management group generally meets once the first Thursday of the month. This past year, we met 33 times. And so I think we wanted to make sure that we got together to ensure that that information was getting to our department heads and also to our employees as we got new information from Kathy. Participated on the 17th at the MCC JPA. That's been covered by Commissioner Whalen and Commissioner Campbell. Had conversations on Friday with Joe in regards to the government center. And yesterday we met with Ben Matz and Joe Olson prior to our building committee that's been addressed. I did just want to cover, we did, at the board's request, we did send a letter to the governor last week. His aide did provide that they did receive that and was given it to him that day. We also heard from Senator Eakin and Representative Lee in their appreciation of the board's providing that direction. I did fail to note that the Minnesota State Testing Office has reopened up on 15th Avenue North. They are currently limiting services to driver's license testing, both written and road tests. And reinstatements, and there's a link on our spotlight on our webpage that citizens can go to set that up. As was mentioned earlier, this afternoon we are meeting with our business relief group, with our CARES group in regards to the business relief. As we discussed last week, the legislature did pass a $216 million economic relief package that was 3 buckets. One was coming from the Department of Revenue. One was to focus on business types such as theaters and convention centers, and then there's a third bucket that was provided $114 million to counties. Clay County received roughly $1.2 million for distribution for businesses, and we're going to be meeting later today to begin the planning process for that. Yeah, right after this. Yep. Oh, yeah, sorry, this morning. It's almost afternoon.
Now what I gotta change.
Yeah, right.
And so, that concludes my report.
Okay. Just a word to the public that, they were aware of the more care funds coming in, and as Steve just mentioned, they're gonna meet on that. I've got several calls already that they want to get their name on the list, but just to let them know that, hey, we just got the money, and we will be, taking all the requests into consideration, and that process is just starting right after this. So, Brian, you got anything for us? Okay, and very good. We are adjourned.